Hey, Fizzy here. So I've been making tanks on Tank Tussle for about a couple months now, so I thought I'd try my hand at doing a tutorial. So let's start off with the basics. Tank Tussle uses Create, which uses rotational force to get things to move. Rotational force can be made with motors, and it can be changed using these blocks. So for instance, a gear shift will make the rotational force reverse when powered, and using some create connected blocks, we can do the opposite. So this will make the rotational force reverse when it's not powered. We can also use things such as clutches in order to stop rotational force from going through until powered. So this is an inverted clutch, which is from create connected. So we can use these blocks to make a very simple transmission. So we're getting power in through the clutch, and it's going into what's called a gearbox, which is going to move the power into these gear shifts. And if we power the clutch, you can see that both gear shifts are now moving forward. And if we power this, it's going to hard power the wooden block here, and that's powering both the clutch and one of the gear shifts. So now one of the gear shift is moving forward, and the other one is moving backwards. This will be our input for turning right. And if we power the other one, we get the exact same thing, but the other way, so we're going left now. And we can hard power the gearbox as well, which makes everything power, so now we are going backwards. So here you can see I've set up a very simple tank. So we've got TrackWorks sprocket track and suspension track. Now, in order to assemble this tank, you want to make sure that all of the TrackWork wheels are in a straight line. You don't want to have them like this, for example. This is not going to work. You want to have them in a straight line, and when it's assembled, all of these road wheels are going to drop downwards. So in order to assemble this, we're going to use a Eureka ship helm, and we can click assemble when we shift right click on it, and there we go. We're going to break the ship helm, and you can see that the little tank-like platform is now fully assembled, and we can move it using that rotational force from earlier, which is now going into these sprockets. You can only power the sprockets, you cannot power the road wheels. And also make sure that you have sprockets on both sides, because unless you want your tank to look like this, then, you'd want both sides done. Now, in order to make it move forward, we can flip this lever, and you can see that it is now slowly moving forward. If we want it to move backward, we can click this lever, it's slowly moving backward. And these levers make it go left and make it go right. Now let's say that you wanted it to move, but you didn't want to be flipping these levers all the time. You can use something called a linked controller along with redstone links. We want to shift right click all of these in order to make sure that they are receivers and not transmitters. So if you see the little dish, that means that it's a receiver and it's going to receive messages. And then we can encode their channels in order to take different inputs. In order to turn these on using our controller, we can right-click one of them with the controller and then press the key on our keyboard that we want to bind to it. So I'm going to press W, and now if I right-click the air with my controller, it's going to enable it. If I press W, you can see that it is making that light up there. If I stop pressing it, it stops lighting up. Now I can do the same with all the other ones, so I just did S for that one, I'm going to do A for this one, and D for this one. And now, I can make the entire tank work using my controller. Now I'm just going to make this a little bit faster, we're just going to do 124. And you can see that our tank is now moving. Now, even though this transmission technically works, it isn't legal because we are using a creative motor. So instead, we are going to use a huge diesel engine, which, despite its name, is the most compact option. So what we're going to do is we're going to destroy that motor there, and we're going to replace it with an encased chain cogwheel, which you can find in Create Connected. I'm going to put an encased train drive over here, And we're going to grab a shaft and place it there. So in order for a huge diesel engine to work, it needs to be pumping fuel into itself, which is why we have the encased chain cogwheel here, which will power this mechanical pump, which is going to be connected to a fluid tank, just like so. And I'm just going to quickly set that up again because I want that there. Fluid tanks can be hard powered as well, so that's perfectly fine to put there. Next, we'll put our engine down and we're going to grab our wrench and we want to right click the side of the engine that we want the fuel to go in. When you right click sides of this engine, it opens up fuel ports. We want it to open up on the side that we're putting fuel into. And in order to power this, we're going to use a bucket of diesel and we're going to fill this up here. There we go. We just fill it up by holding right click on it. Now, I know this doesn't look like a lot of fuel, but a 1x1 tank will get you at least 30 minutes of driving time, which is perfectly fine for the usual tank match, which is over way before 30 minutes. In order to start this, what we're going to do is we're going to place a creative motor here. This broke, so we're going to replace it, and it comes to life. Now, the reason this broke is because the creative motor was turning in the opposite direction as to what this is set as. So if I turned it in the correct direction, it would have had no problems. But as you saw just then, just placing the shaft back is enough to get it working again. So now we've got a tiny legal transmission, but this isn't enough because we need other things for our tank to work as well, such as a turret and a gun. So let's get onto that. So to start making our turret, we are going to use a fizz bearing. This is going to make sure that the turret can actually move around. So the turret will be a separate Valkyrian Skies ship than the hull is, and this fizz bearing will keep the two ships together. This fizz bearing can also be powered so it can rotate left or right. So that will be how turret traverse works. In order to get power to this, we are going to put power in through the side. This can be done using a wrench. So when you wrench this, it will rotate around. And we want to rotate it after everything's assembled so that this side with the shaft in it will be facing the way that it's being powered from. It will still keep rotating whatever's on top of it in the same way. I'm not sure if this is a bug or a feature, but it's been around so long that I'm pretty sure it's just a feature at this point. So to start off, we are going to place our clutch and gear shift. And then we want to get power around to here. So we're going to bring this shaft up this way. We're going to use some cogwheels, and the reason for that is encased cogwheels can be hard powered. We also want to have another little bit off to the side, just like so. And this is going to be powering an energy transmitter from the Ender Transmission mod. So this will be powering the gun pitch later on. We can even set the channel now in order to not confuse ourselves. You can also type something in here, so I'm going to call this tank tutorial. That way our tank won't be crossing anyone else's signals. Another thing I want to do is put an ender transmitter somewhere else along this line, which will be powering the autoloader that we're going to put on this thing. I usually put my ender transmitters right here, and they can be hard powered as well. We're going to have this as a different number to our other ender transmitter, just so that we don't get things confused. And now, before we continue, I want to put a redstone resistor along this line. What this will do is make sure that the rotation speed for the turret and the pitch isn't too high. Something to know is that the pitch for the cannon mounts is very, very demanding of stress units, and so you want to make sure that you're moving them very slowly, or the entire system's going to freeze up. We're also going to slow down the turret traverse at the same time, for both realism and also because it's easier to aim this way. So I have this just one click down from full, because of course full freezes everything up completely. In order to control these, I can put these redstone links over the top, and of course make them all receivers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have both of these receivers the same, which means that when we want this to go backwards, or down in this case, the clutch will be powered through this block being hard powered, and this will be powered through this link. This is because gear shifts cannot be hard powered, so you need to power another block in order to get the clutch to power. To end this all off, I'm going to use a hard armor block. You can find this in multiple colors in colored steel blocks. The usual hard armor at the least that you want on the front is 3, as medium cannons can penetrate 2 blocks using AP shells. So in an actual match, 3 is the minimum that you want. I'm going to go with 4. And we can get a little bit of back armor happening as well. And I just want to make sure that our turret is going to be centered, which I do think it will be. Everything's looking good for our tank so far, so now I'm going to grab an encased chain drive and bring it all the way to the back so we can power those back sprockets. You can choose between 3 sizes for your road wheels and sprockets. I'm going with large, and we're going to take our wrench out. I'll show you in a second why. We want to make sure that we've got some side armor for this first, just like so. And we can place tracks next to each other like this to make them look a little bit wider. Now the reason I have my wrench with me is that we can right-click using our wrench to make these disappear. One more thing that you might want to know is that you can actually mix sprocket and road wheel sizes. It can look a little bit goofy if you don't hide it properly, but if you do, then you can make it look good. And for me, I think I'm going to try and risk it because something tells me that having these smaller sprockets for this is going to look a little bit better. Having armor everywhere you can is very important. There's this one spot where we can put some extra armor here, and so I'm going to. Finally, before making our turret, you may be wondering, what are we going to do with this hull? Well, for now, we are going to leave it. I'm going to get back to this. However, one more thing I will say before we continue is I have been putting all of these links on top, along with this analog lever. I've only put them on top so they're more visible, but I will say that we're going to remove all of them. Yes, I know this is a little bit annoying. And put them underneath. Now there's probably a few people that are going to cringe at me doing this. There's a bit of a thing right now against links being exposed on the bottom of the tank. I've personally never had any issues with links on the bottom of my tanks, but do be wary that if you do this, which I do this all the time, people might call your tank a shitbox. The next thing we're going to do is build our turret. I'm going to build it off to the side of the tank, just so that I can have some more room to do things to both the turret and the hull. To start off with, I usually place my compact cannon mount, which I will use 2. I'll show you why later. And we're going to use a medium cannon for now, because they're easier to load and they're also the meta right now. If you want to know more about big cannons, then I suggest you look into some YouTube tutorials. They can get quite complex and they're a whole other video in themselves. We want to make sure that there's a medium cannon breech on the back, at least 1 recoil barrel, and we also want to make sure that our cannon does not become longer than 14 blocks. That is including the recoil barrel, but not including the breech. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. What I'll now do is assemble this like that. And then I'm actually going to make another one. So you may be wondering what's going on here. When you assemble a cannon, it has no collision, it becomes an entity. And so you can build another cannon inside of it, and then assemble that cannon on the other mount, which it didn't assemble. There we go. So now we have two medium cannons inside of each other, which is pretty interesting. So the next thing we want to do is put redstone links on the other side of the compact cannon mounts, and these are going to act as our firing links. So when you power those sides of the cannon mounts, they fire the cannon. Now I'm going to put an energy transmitter right here. This is going to transmit energy into the cannon mounts and control the pitch of the gun. So we can set this to 10 and put this as tutorial. And this should be linked up with this energy transmitter now. So when that powers, this is going to start changing the gun's pitch. Next, I'm going to place an energy transmitter right here. Set this to 9. So this is now taking power from this one here. As you can see, it's already rotating. And we're going to place an adjustable chain gear shift, which will double the power that goes into this one once powered. And in order to power it, we're going to do something a little bit more compact. We're going to get rid of this. Oh, that broke that. And we're going to place it here, which is still going to power this cannon mount here, which will assemble the cannon again, but it's also going to hard power the energy transmitter, which in turn will power our adjustable chain gear shift. This is going into an encased chain cogwheel, which is going to power our mechanical arm. This mechanical arm is going to do all of the heavy lifting for us as far as getting things into the cannons goes. Now I'm going to place down a depot and put a hopper into it. We don't want this the other way around, or the hopper is going to get hard powered and won't be able to drop its items in. And we're going to place a smart chute. We don't want to place it here because then when we shoot, the smart chute will be powered and won't be able to take in items for a second, and every second counts. The main thing to worry about when making any sort of turret is, of course, redstone interference. Redstone interference is everywhere up in the turret with how compact things can get, so just look out for any that you can see. I am going to break this mechanical arm, and I'm going to place a dummy block here, because you can place mechanical arms upside down, which looks a little bit more compact once everything's assembled. You won't have any mechanical arms popping out the top of your tank. And now what I'm going to do is right-click everything that I want this to interact with. So that includes my compact cannon mounts and my depot and also the chute. I'm going to right-click this twice so it's using this as a place to put things, not to take things from. And now we can place this down. So that's now linked in to everything. And in order to get it going, we want to set everything else up. What I have with me is some AP medium cannon cartridges and an empty medium cannon cartridge. We are going to put the empty one into the filter slot for this chute so that the arm isn't putting medium cannon cartridges into our chute. And we're going to put the medium cannon cartridges into our hopper. That's going to feed into the depot, which the mechanical arm can take from and put into these here. Now, if I grab myself a controller, and we're just going to bind this to shift. Nice. By the way, this should work perfectly. However, it's currently broken as I've just got news that it doesn't work right now. The mechanical arm will deposit the AP shells into the mounts, but it won't take them back out again once they're empty. So you actually have to do that by hand. So yeah, unfortunately, until that's patched, you either need to use the normal cannon mounts, which you can just find over here. However, as you can see, they are massive. They are absolutely huge. So yeah, up to you if you want to use those instead. Yeah. This should be fixed though soon, hopefully. You can of course load these manually by right-clicking here, and then right-clicking the open breach with these cartridges. Right-clicking again, and then firing. There we go. Now that our turret is ready, we want to armor it up. In order to armor it up, I'm going to give it some side armor. We're just going to make a ring of hard armor around it. Again, making sure to put armor wherever you can. If there's ever a gap, you put armor in there. And once again, make sure to have a good amount of frontal armor. And I'm going to put a little bit more side armor on as well. Just a tad more back. And we're also going to make sure that the top is protected as well. Now we're going to go back to the hull, and we're going to add some more armor on top of here. So we want to make sure that there is enough space for the turret to traverse, because we have this block in here, which will be going down into where the fizz bearing is. So just pretend there was a block there, and that has to rotate around. And so we want to keep enough space for that. I'm going to use some copycat blocks in order to put some hard armor in place here. One tip is that you should use Copycats Plus instead of framed blocks, because Copycats Plus keeps its data when you make a schematic using Create, whereas framed blocks does not. So yeah, Copycats will make assembly much easier. I'm going to have the back of this tank look a little bit blockier, and I'm going to have the front be a bit more sloped. So if I'm gonna bring this forward just a bit more, and then I'm going to grab copycat layers and just slope this front a little bit. I might also replace these blocks with some copycat layers. There we go, looking better already. Let's have some overhang in the back, why not? Make sure to cover up this back bit with where these are. Don't want those getting hit. Now in order to make this tank look a little bit nicer, I'm going to add a layer of armor over the top of the wheels. And I'm going to make it slope up just a little bit right here. I might actually make this, yeah. I'm just going to put some little mud flaps over here. A little bit of spice, you know. And I might just add something here. And we'll grab some half panels and place those there too. Okay, so now guess what we have to do? Repeat all of this on this side. That shouldn't look too bad for now. We will come back to make it look a little bit prettier though. In the meantime, the turret looks awful. So we're going to fix it. What we're going to start off with is we're going to make it a little bit rounder. Ooh. We can use vertical slices to add some roundness. Might even replace these blocks here with copycat layers. This is sort of the part where you just got to experiment. mess around until you find something that you like and works for you. As you can see, this is looking much rounder around here. Now, what am I going to do for this back part? Well, I'm going to have it as just a little bit that struts out. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller at the back. And I might just sacrifice a little bit of back armor just so we can have this bit a little bit rounder. Yeah, that looks nice. Now I'm just going to completely redo the top of it. What I do know that I want is a full block of armor on this top section. And then I might make this a little bit rounder this time. We can use more copycat slices, maybe not. One other tip is that you can use the wrench and shift right click on these to make them shorter again, if you ever make any mistake. So there is no right or wrong way to do this. You just gotta do what feels right for you. Of course, things are a little bit different when you're making a replica, but even then, making a replica is very arty as well, as your interpretation of a tank in real life might be different to someone else's interpretation. I'm not really enjoying how bulbous the front's looking, so I might just make everything sort of go downwards toward the front a little bit, just like so. Give it some angle. There we go, I think that looks a bit better. And one more thing, I'm going to make this chord a little bit more, just to emulate sort of the front of the gun where that pops out. There we go. I think that looks good. Something else we can add is things such as hatches, so we can go in here, find ourselves a copycat trapdoor. You can use trapdoors as hatches. Maybe have a little spot down in here for the crew. Especially very useful right now as the mounts aren't working properly, so you might actually need a loader. This I'm actually going to use half layers, which you can do this with, which is quite neat. In order to spice things up, I might actually use a block of industrial iron instead. Yeah, that looks good. Very nice. And now I'm going to make a slightly taller one for the commander. There we go, that's looking much more commander friendly. And now we can finally give our tank a antenna. I'm going to put that antenna right here. I'm going to color it in with industrial iron. Nice. In order to detail our tank just a little bit more, I'm going to make the underside out of a different color. So I'm going to go with this very dark gray hard armor. I don't want to go with black. I think that's just too saturated. And as you can see, this is already looking better than this side. I'm going to do this with the entire underside of the tank. Now this tank is looking a little bit flat, so we might want to put some decoration on it. I'm going to start with the obvious that is sticking out to me right now, and that is the fact that the engine can't breathe. Yes, there's no real engine under here, but it's nice to think of these tanks as though they have realistic parts, because that way you can more accurately depict them if you just pretend that these tanks do have real tank pieces. On the back of this, I'm going to replace this with some copycat slices, and then I'm going to grab some of these, and I'm going to grab a light gray balloon, which is more green than gray, and put that there for some bags. Maybe we'd like there to be some spare logs on the side, a little bit of a just in case. You never know when you're going to need some logs. Another thing we can do is use copycat bites on the side with metal brackets to emulate smoke launchers. Now on the front of here you may be seeing that there's no way for a theoretical driver to see what's going on. So we're just going to add some bumps. And those sort of look like there's things such as hatches or periscopes there. Could even use this industrial iron train hull, sort of like a spare road wheel. I'm going to place some of these oil barrels on the back as sort of an exhaust port, along with, I will grab this copycat half panel and put some industrial iron on that. There we go, we've got our exhaust. And the reason I'm using these oil barrels is because you can dye them. So if I grab some dye, what if I do light gray instead? Yeah, that looks good. In that case, I'll bring these all the way back to the back again. Okay, another thing I might do is you could grab rose quartz lamps or normal redstone lamps, and we can make some lights for this. Grab my half panels again. Got some lights. And we can put some on the back as well if you like. Need a place to put them. I'd like that. Yeah, that looks good. You can also add things such as bags and whatnot onto the side of our tank. We can make this one hang down a little bit. And finally, I'm going to add just a little bit more armor onto the bottom of the tank. just so that it's not going to be getting damaged down there. There we go, looking much better. So now our tank is almost ready to assemble. At this point, I'd also recommend adding just a little bit of camo. So what I'd do here is we could grab this other hard armor block, which is a slightly lighter shade, as you can see, and we could use this as part of our camo. Just placing it like this around the tank. Okay, so our tank is basically ready to assemble now. So what I'm going to do next is skim it up. So I'm going to take my glass and I'm going to make sure that I get the 2 points that I want to get. I think there's any blocks up there. You want to encapsulate the entire hull in this box. Take your skim out and right click both sides. That's not what I want to do. Shift right click to clear your selection if you mess it up. There we go. Got it right that time, I believe. Yes. We can break these glass blocks before continuing, so we don't get those in the schematic. And then right click on your schematic and we can name this. I'm going to name it Tutorial Tank Hull V1. Now we're going to take this turret and we are going to make that a schematic as well. There's no need to take the glass all the way to the end of this gun, by the way. It just needs to be to the end of the actual structure of the turret. Make this a schematic to do tutorial tank turret, and I'm going to mark it as V1 as well, just in case we want to make changes later. So I've loaded up another world here, just so I can show you how to set up your tank. So we're going to grab our schematic table and take some empty schematics. One of them we're going to load up with the hull, and the other one we're going to load up with the turret. There we go. Now, instead of just placing them into the world, I'm going to build up a few blocks, and this yellow balloon is going to be my block of choice for this. So I'm going to place my Eureka ship helm, shift right click it, press assemble, and now I'm just going to have a balloon block here, which is a ship. And we're going to place the schematic on the ship. You can actually place schematics on ships, this is quite important. So now we've got the hull there, we can scroll and print that, and as you can see, our tank is together. Very nice. It is a little bit tall though, which I'm not vibing with. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a suspension controller block and we're going to grab a hand crank. Place it somewhere on the hull, make sure it's facing upwards if you want to lower the suspension like I'm about to do. And we're going to shift and hold right click on it and it's going to slowly bring the tank downward. Let's check on our work. Looking a lot better. Let's do some more. And there we go. It's looking a lot better already. Maybe just one more. Or two. Yeah, that's looking good. And we also want to grab the track toolkit, and we're going to right click it once so it comes up with this little compressor thing. And we're going to right click this to up the stiffness of our tracks. There we go. That's looking good. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our schematic of our turret. Now before we place this down, I do want to set up the bearing. So we place our block on top of the bearing and then right click the bearing in order to get it into action. And we're going to go under the tank, and just like before, I'm going to right click it on the side until it is facing where it's going to be powered from. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my turret schematic and put it on this other ship here. As you can see, it is in the wrong spot. We want this to line up with our physics bearing. So what we're going to do is we're going to build up a bit and build back by one. Change that position. So now it is in the right place. Now move XZ does not work. However, move Y does. So we can move this down. Very nice. And then we can print. Now this is something else that I forgot to mention. Try to build your tanks facing south. I completely forgot about this. This is what happens when you don't build your tank facing south. It's not good. So always remember that. So in order to fix this, I am going to have to just break a lot of stuff. I'm about to severely mess this tank up, unfortunately. Okay, now that that is fixed, I'm going to go underneath the tank, and what we need to do is get this tank started. So if I try to fill up this here, it's not going to work because it's currently a bit bugged. So what we need to do is we need to find some room in here. There we go, we can see the top of it now, and we want to place a tank on top of it and then break it again, and that should fix it. So now we can hold right click on it with the diesel bucket and fill it up. Very nice. And the next thing we want to do is start the engine. So we're going to use our creative motor again. There we go. And that's broken again. So we're just going to fix it. There we go. Our tank is now running. So now we can start to bind our controller. So we're going to use a tweaked controller for this instead of a normal create controller so that we have more functions. As you can see, our tank is driving. That's good. Very good sign. Let's see if we can get the turret traversing. We can indeed. And now let's see if we can get the gun pitching. Fingers crossed I've done this all correctly. So the turret is not pitching. What's this on? 10. Tutorial. Okay. This should be working. That's interesting. That is very interesting. Okay, there we go. And it's the wrong way. But that's okay, we can just rebind these. Okay, now our tank is fully functional, and with that, we're done. Also, you should probably bind the fire key and also fill up your hopper with ammunition. But for me, I do believe I'm going to finish up right now. So that is how you make your own tank tussle tank. I hope this video did help you. If you did find it useful, then make sure to leave a like. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be doing more tutorial videos on Minecraft, Valkyrian Skies, and tanks just like this. And yeah, I will see you next time. Goodbye.